These sherbet lemon candies are actually quite good. Oh. Welcome back, my dear wizards, witches, muggles, and squibs. Last time we delved into the most intricate and hidden secrets of Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore. But today, it's time to talk about his most epic moment. The one that cemented him as a legend. The year is 1945. The wizarding world is in turmoil, divided by the visions of two powerful wizards. On one side, Gellert Grindelwald, and on the other, Albus Dumbledore. Protego, Expelliarmus, dark spells and unyielding defenses. It wasn't just a battle of wands, but a clash of ideologies. And yet, behind this were years of friendship, shared dreams, and mistakes. Dumbledore knew that facing Grindelwald meant confronting his past, the tragic death of Ariana, and his own youthful ambitions. I mean, who hasn't ever dreamt of conquering the world, right? As always, I'm your charming adventurer wizard, and today we return to one of the most beloved tales. The story of a great wizard, yes, but most importantly, the story of a human being.
(1926), a pivotal moment for the wizarding world, mirroring the growing tension and instability of Muggle Europe. Economic crises, social unrest, and the unsettling rise of increasingly authoritarian nationalist movements marked the continent's response to the devastating aftermath of the First World War, a tragedy from which Muggles were still struggling to recover. A grim, yet unsurprising scenario, at least not for Gellert Grindelwald, who had foreseen the danger posed by Muggles and their innate self-destructive tendencies years before. Albus Dumbledore, the young professor at Hogwarts, knew this all too well. But he also knew that the true threat to the wizarding world at that moment, greater than Muggle hatred and recklessness, was Grindelwald's unquenchable thirst for power. A desire that would stir and feed an ancient resentment in witches and wizards, inciting them to war and ultimately leading them to become not so different from the very Muggles they so despised. Thanks to the vast network of contacts and acquaintances Albus had cultivated over the years, a result of his growing reputation as the most talented and promising wizard of the century, he managed to track Grindelwald's movements and deeds, though it weighed heavily on his heart. The wound left by the loss of his sister, Ariana, was more open than ever, still bleeding with guilt. Facing the mere mention of Gellert Grindelwald's name meant confronting the unresolved nightmares of his past, his greatest pain. To face him meant confronting the chilling truth that haunted his every night's sleep. Was it Albus's wand that had ended Ariana's life? It was a question to which the wizard would never find an answer, a shadow that would follow him to his final days. One thing, however, was certain. If his sister were watching him now, she would be ashamed of him, just as his brother Aberforth was.
Albus.
Yet, as an exceptionally powerful and capable wizard, it was his responsibility to be prepared for the looming threat, despite the anguish, despite everything, for the good of the wizarding world, and the entire world, for the greater good. During those years, he had learned that Grindelwald's obsession with becoming the master of death by claiming all three Deathly Hallows had not diminished in the slightest.
I'm close.
Though his search for the Cloak of Invisibility and the Resurrection Stone had ended in failure, unsettling whispers suggested that the Dark Wizard had managed to seize what many considered the most powerful magical artifact ever conceived, the Elder Wand.
The Elder Wand.
According to the reconstruction of events Albus had pieced together, Mikhail Grigorovich, a renowned yet controversial wandmaker from Eastern Europe, whose reputation rivaled that of the Ollivanders, had spread word that he had come into possession of a wand of extraordinary power. Though the Elder Wand was dismissed by many as little more than a cautionary children's tale, it did not take Dumbledore long to suspect that perhaps, after centuries, the infamous Deathly Hallow had been found once more. The trail of the Elder Wand faded into the depths of medieval history.
The first well-documented mention of a wand made of elder that had particularly strong and dangerous powers was owned by Emmerich, commonly called the Evil, a short-lived but exceptionally aggressive wizard who terrorized the south of England in the early Middle Ages.
After being claimed by Emeric the Evil, the Deathly Hallow passed into the hands of Egbert the Egregious, who managed to defeat the dark and terrible wizard, only to be defeated himself by Godelo. Known primarily for writing Magic Moster Evil, one of the most dangerous texts on the dark arts, he was eventually murdered by none other than his own son, Hereward. And with Hereward, all traces of the Elder Wand vanished, dissolving into superstition and legend, until Mikiu Grigorovich became its new master. But the wizard had proven to be decidedly short-sighted. Perhaps to boost the business and reputation of his workshop, perhaps, as some suggest, to find assistance to help him in his ambitious attempt to replicate the properties of the prodigious wand, or perhaps out of sheer, naive foolishness. The news spread as swiftly as dragonpox. And so it was that one night, a blonde-haired demon slipped into the shadows of his workshop, leaving Grigorovich unconscious on the ground, and finally feeling, after so many years, the object of his long search, pulsing with vibrant power in the palm of his hand. Gellert Grindelwald had claimed the Elder Wand. Of that, Albus Dumbledore had no doubt. The revolution for the greater good, which would later be known as the Global Wizarding War, was now imminent. Despite Dumbledore's attempts to warn the wizarding world of the impending threat posed by Grindelwald, the British Ministry of Magic, led at the time by Hector Fawley, dismissed his concerns as unfounded alarmism. Unfortunately for all, it didn't take long for the Dark Wizard to catch the minister's attention. Through a series of devastating attacks across Europe, Grindelwald committed numerous mass murders, atrocities that even the Muggle world couldn't ignore, risking the exposure of magic and consequently, war. In a remarkably short time, the Dark Wizard had drawn the attention of magical authorities worldwide, becoming the most wanted criminal on the planet. The pressure from Aurors was enough to temporarily halt Grindelwald's revolution, forcing him to disappear, waiting for the waters to calm, waiting for his ultimate return.
Do not be fooled.
In the years that followed, Grindelwald's plans grew ever darker and more intricate. What we do know is that Dumbledore, convinced that the Dark Wizard's sudden disappearance was nothing but a temporary ruse, never found the courage to act directly and confront his former friend. Was Albus afraid of him? Possibly. Despite the disagreements among historians regarding many events, they all agree on one thing. While it is likely that Dumbledore feared facing Grindelwald because of their shared past, it is equally true that the only wizard Grindelwald ever feared was Albus Dumbledore. Both were wizards of exceptional skill, brilliance, and mastery. Both too powerful. Both bound by a past they could never fully set aside. For these reasons, it is said that Albus sought the help of one of his most gifted former students, Newt Scamander. By then, Newt had become a renowned magizoologist, working for the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures at the Ministry of Magic in London. His work had taken him across the globe, seeking out and rescuing magical creatures from the hands of his fellow wizards, whether from greedy poachers looking to profit from their rare qualities, or from those who viewed these beings as a threat to the statute of secrecy. His help proved crucial when, in New York, it was discovered that Grindelwald had been secretly infiltrating the upper ranks of the Magical Congress of the United States of America through human transfiguration. This deception led to the unleashing of an Obscurus, resulting in a disaster of unprecedented scale. Though the Dark Wizard was captured and imprisoned, he managed to escape just 6 months later, during the transfer orchestrated by British Aurors, who had arrived to escort him to Azkaban. The aftermath of Gellert Grindelwald's escape set off a chain of events that rippled from Paris to Berlin, shaking the established order and spreading his ideology with increasing fervor. Each day, more witches and wizards fell under his influence, captivated by his vision of a world where magical beings would no longer conceal themselves from Muggles, but instead rule over them.
The time has come.
Did you know that exclusive Spellbook Chronicles booklets are now available? ancient volumes filled with secrets just like the ones hidden in the restricted section. But instead of hiding from Madame Pince, all you need is a click. This Muggle technology is amazing. Each booklet contains one of the most beloved stories from the series, enriched with exclusive images. So, what are you waiting for? Start collecting them all. Your support is invaluable. Not only will you enjoy the magic, but you'll also be supporting the channel, allowing us to keep bringing you the most amazing stories, like the one in this episode. So, enjoy the show.
By 1935, the Muggle world was approaching a point of no return. While the United States remained trapped in the throes of the Great Depression, Europe, still scarred by the devastation of the First World War just 17 years prior, was caught in a storm of rising tensions and radical political shifts. Nazi Germany, under the leadership of Adolf Hitler since 1933, was solidifying its power, paving the way for the second great global conflict that would erupt just 4 years later. Such tension could not go unnoticed by the wizarding world, which began to see in Gellert Grindelwald a leader, extreme yet just, perhaps the only one capable of bringing peace and forging a new balance between the two worlds. The prophecy he had shared through his mastery of divination had shaken the very foundations of the magical community, stirring a wave of resentment toward Muggles not seen since the Dark Ages. Grindelwald's vision spoke of a weapon of mass destruction, so devastating that it would surpass even the darkest of magical curses. The Muggle world would come to know it as the atomic bomb. Such a future was never meant to come to pass. And so, the war finally erupted, transforming the wizarding world after centuries of fragile peace into a blood-stained battlefield, a relentless, unending genocide. Years went by. Just as Grindelwald had foreseen, the Second World War had erupted in the Muggle world, unleashing a wave of death and devastation unparalleled in the history of humanity. Despite Dumbledore's numerous attempts over the years to prevent the Dark Wizard's definitive rise to power, the British Ministry of Magic and the Aura Department never fully supported or trusted the Hogwarts professor's plans. Despite his proven abilities, there were growing suspicions that Dumbledore himself had been compromised long ago, secretly collaborating with Grindelwald to facilitate his ascent. Although this suspicion was never made public, the higher ranks of the ministry had become aware of the deep bond that had once tied the two wizards together. To their eyes, the anti-Muggle ideology of Dumbledore's father, Percival, who had spent his final years in Azkaban, only reinforced their doubts. However, things took a different turn in 1939. Fearing that the alliances of the wizarding world, particularly those in America, France, and Germany, were losing the war, the magical community found itself desperately seeking more decisive support. 12 years after the rally that marked Grindelwald's rise, the complacent British Minister for Magic, Hector Fawley, was ousted from his office for his failure to implement effective security measures in Great Britain. He was succeeded by the more proactive Leonard Spencer Moon, a capable and strategic leader amid the growing international crisis, who maintained direct contact with the Muggle Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, to ensure the highest level of protection for the country. It was an August day like any other, in those dark years of war, when Albus Dumbledore, no longer the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher at Hogwarts, but a professor of Transfiguration, was informed by Headmaster Armando Dippet that the Ministry of Magic had identified an 11-year-old half-blood wizard, unaware of his heritage. As was customary, he needed to be assessed, informed, and guided in preparation for his imminent admission to the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The boy's name was Tom Riddle. And so Albus made his way to London, to Wool's Orphanage, where he would unexpectedly face one of the most pivotal encounters of his entire life. Despite Mrs. Cole's warnings about the boy's troubling behavior, the wizard remained skeptical.
You have a visitor.
His intuition told him that before him stood a young wizard whose latent power was something exceptionally rare.
Who are you?
Despite learning of Tom's peculiar ability to speak Parseltongue, a rare gift typically associated with dark wizards, Albus did not immediately see it as a sign of danger. No, it was something else. Something in Tom's eyes. A gaze that pierced through the wizard's very core, betraying a natural instinct for cruelty, secrecy, and domination. It was a look that reminded Albus unsettlingly of the darkest side of someone he had once loved. What was the connection between young Tom Riddle and Gellert Grindelwald? That day, a disturbing feeling took hold of Albus Dumbledore. A feeling that, perhaps, never truly left him. As expected, the boy proved to be as talented as he was brilliant at Hogwarts. Perhaps the most gifted student since a young Albus Dumbledore. Though the Transfiguration Professor had kept a close watch on the young Slytherin over the years, he couldn't help but feel a lingering sense of guilt about it. Beyond the walls of Hogwarts, past the mist-covered Scottish Highlands, the global wizarding world raged on, more ruthless than ever. What if his suspicions about Riddle were merely a reflection of his own failure, his inability after all those years to confront Grindelwald openly and put an end to it all? It was 1942 when Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry faced one of the darkest and most tragic moments in its history. The Chamber of Secrets had been opened.
Reliable historical sources tell us this much, but these honest facts have been obscured by the fanciful legend of the Chamber of Secrets. The story goes that Slytherin had built a hidden chamber in the castle, of which the other founders knew nothing. Slytherin, according to the legend, sealed the Chamber of Secrets so that none would be able to open it until his own true heir arrived at the school. The heir alone would be able to unseal the Chamber of Secrets, unleash the horror within, and use it to purge the school of all who were unworthy to study magic.
Many students, half-bloods and muggle-borns, were petrified by the piercing gaze of a basilisk, awakened from the depths of the chamber. Last among them was young Myrtle Warren, a Ravenclaw whose lifeless body was found in the girls' bathroom. If a basilisk had been summoned and controlled, only the heir of Salazar Slytherin could have achieved such a feat. And what if it had been Tom Riddle? Dumbledore couldn't shake the conviction, yet his evidence at the time was fragile, and the blood spilled within the castle seemed to him only a reflection of the horrors echoing beyond its walls, amidst the cries of war. Perhaps the heir of Slytherin, whoever they were, would have to wait. Perhaps it was time to face the inevitable. There was no turning back. Dumbledore understood that the time had come to face his destiny and confront the shadows of his past once and for all.
No more waiting.
What was the purpose of all those years spent mastering magic? The unmatched skill with a wand, if they could not summon the courage to confront his deepest fears, to save the entire wizarding world. The time for cowardice had finally run out, its last second ticking away into silence.
While I busied myself with the training of young wizards, Grindelwald was raising an army. They say he feared me, and perhaps he did, but less, I think, than I feared him. It was the truth I feared. You see, I never knew which of us, in that last horrific fight, had actually cast the curse that killed my sister. I think he knew it. I think he knew what frightened me. I delayed meeting him until finally it would have been too shameful to resist any longer. People were dying and he seemed unstoppable, and I had to do what I could.
And so, 1945 arrived. Against all odds, the Second World War in the Muggle world had finally reached its end, bringing a long-awaited peace that many had scarcely dared to hope for. Alongside it, the power of Gellert Grindelwald and the fervent support of the magical community began to wane, slowly but inevitably. The long-anticipated duel, the one remembered in every history book as perhaps the greatest magical duel ever fought, was about to begin. To this day, many details about where and how Albus Dumbledore and Gellert Grindelwald, after so many years, finally faced each other, remain shrouded in mystery. What is known is that both of them fought with the full extent of their powers, unleashing a tapestry of spells of unmatched mastery and complexity. There is no definitive account of how the duel truly unfolded, yet over the years, historians have proposed a version of events that appears more credible than others, one that begins with a crucial question. As skilled and capable as he was, how could Albus Dumbledore have defeated a wizard of equal power who wielded the most formidable wand ever crafted in history? According to this theory, the Elder Wand does not automatically make its wielder the most powerful, but rather ensures that every spell cast is executed to perfection at its fullest possible power. However, Dumbledore was already an exceptional wizard, capable of casting spells with flawless precision. His mastery of magic is evident in his use of the disillusionment charm, so potent that it rendered him completely invisible. In light of this, possessing the Elder Wand would not have given him any additional advantage. It becomes clear then that the legendary duel between Grindelwald and Dumbledore was less a test of sheer magical skill and more a battle of endurance. At this point, two decisive factors come into play, shaping the outcome of their confrontation. In those days, the fire of the Dumbledore house had risen anew in Fawkes the Phoenix. Loyal to his friend and master, the bird became an invaluable ally against the Dark Wizard, a force capable of countering the might of the Death Stick. With his healing tears, Fawkes could mend Albus's wounds and sustain his limited strength against the seemingly boundless power of the Elder Wand. But there's more. According to many scholars of magic, it is believed that the Elder Wand can only reach its fullest potential when the caster's intent is clear and resolute. In the case of offensive magic, much like an unforgivable curse, the intent must be lethal and merciless. But what if Grindelwald, after all, still harbored feelings for his greatest friend, the one with whom he had once shared dreams, ambitions, ideals, and love?
For the greater good.
Gellert Grindelwald fell, and his reign of terror came to an end. The global wizarding war, after more than 20 years, was truly over. The Dark Wizard was transferred to the magical authorities of Northern Europe, who, after a harsh trial for war crimes, sentenced Grindelwald to life imprisonment. His cell would be the highest and most isolated in Nurmengard, the fortress prison he himself had built amid the Austrian Alps to serve his war efforts, a place where he had once imprisoned all who dared to oppose him. The surviving acolytes were disbanded. Some faced trial and were properly convicted, while others vanished without a trace, never to be seen or heard from again. At the same time, having triumphed in the duel, Albus Dumbledore's fame was cemented worldwide. Minister Moon honored him with the prestigious Order of Merlin First Class, and he became universally regarded as the greatest wizard of modern times, a title and the weight of a tremendous responsibility towards the entire wizarding world. Albus understood this all too well by now. The mighty Elder Wand rested firmly in his grip, ready to obey its new master, or, as he saw it, its new guardian.
Your new guardian.
For possessing the Death Stick meant safeguarding a power too great to be truly controlled, an artifact that, if it were to fall into the wrong hands, could once again shatter the delicate balance of the world. Perhaps, wherever she was now,
Albus.
his sister Ariana might finally forgive him.
Brother,
Perhaps.
thank you.
At Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Armando Dippett's tenure came to an end, and so Albus Dumbledore became the headmaster we all know, arguably the greatest the school had ever seen. Beyond the castle's towers, beyond the clouds, the sky seemed at last ready to clear. And yet, there was that feeling, that unsettling sense that refused to fade. The young Tom Riddle, who could say, perhaps one day, time would reveal the truth more clearly. For now, it was just worth enjoying a tasty sherbet lemon.
And here we are again, my dear adventurers, at the end of another journey through the secrets of the wizarding world. The story of Albus Dumbledore isn't just that of a hero, it's the story of a man who faced his own shadows to light the way for others. A bit like yours truly, wouldn't you say? Forgive the modesty. I am always your Quentin Pendragon, here to guide you back into the past and explore the future together in the next episode of the Spellbook Chronicles.